So now that the table is done, the next step would obviously be mount the car to it in order to start actually building the chassis and working on that. I spent the past few hours here figuring out how I want to do this, measuring out. I've had a plan in my head, but now I actually got something welded to the table here. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. I'll do a full drawing on a piece of paper with the actual measurements instead of me just explaining it, walking through it. But this is what it's gonna look like here. I just got these 2x3 pieces all measured out. Once again, I'll draw it out to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. It'll be a little bit easier to see the way I did this. All of these are equal on both sides, and then I just got them tacked in place, like just in case for some reason something is not right, or I want to change the positioning of the car on the table once I get it on these stands. But the rockers are going to just sit on top of this right here, and the pinch welds on the inside of the rockers are going to line up on the inside. That's how I got it measured out. So happy that I got a plan in place here, and then that'll be the main structure points for the car to attach to the table. Of course, there'll be others, like on the tail panel, there'll be ones, going forward for the fenders and stuff like that. But at least this way I can get the car mounted, then I can use ratchets to kind of position the rest of the car if it's going to tip weight wise. And then go through and get everything else mounted. This is what we're working with here. The table is 63 inches wide. Inside to inside is 55 inches wide. So that's what the braces are there, obviously. And the pinch welds on the car, from inside the pinch weld to inside the pinch weld on the rocker, is going to be 56 3/4. So I built this table for the pinch welds to land somewhere on these 4x4 outer pieces. I wasn't sure exactly where it's going to line up to be, but looking at it now, I got the math all figured out. So we're going to be using some 2x3 blocks that are 4 3/4 long that will the rockers will sit on top of. So the first one here is going to be spaced 90 inches from the back of the table to the back of the block right there. That'll go on the furthest most back point of the rocker right before the quarter, and then that will leave me with enough space where the tail panel will line up right at the end of the table. Same concept for the front ones here, except for the front ones will go obviously to the front of the rocker. The rocker does kind of have a step up in the front, so these will go right behind them right there. And then I'll have to use probably a ratchet strap on the front just to kind of hold the weight down, since it is going to be so heavy in the back. Spacing these side to side was going to be the tricky part to figure out. So like I mentioned earlier, the inner rocker to inner rocker is 56 3/4 long, so we need, or wide, so we need at least that right here in between them. And then I just decided to add an 1/8 inch on each side to give myself a little bit of wiggle room for the thickness of the pinch welds. And I know they're not totally straight, they kind of are a little bit wavy in some spots. And that just ended up being where these blocks are going to go center on the table here. So since it's a 2-inch wide block, that leaves me with an inch gap on each side right there. It's pretty simple. Once I got it all figured out, I just wanted to double, triple check everything, make sure that it was all right. And now the next big thing here is going to be actually getting the car up onto the table. Hey, how fun was that?
So much fun.
Okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought though. The original plan was to take like a bar and put it underneath the roof, and we're both gonna lift up on the side and just hope that it doesn't tilt back because all the weight is in the back. Well, what happened when we went to go lift it up with the bar?
It was very heavy.
A lot heavier than I expected. I don't know what this thing actually weighs. It's gotta be somewhere around like 500 pounds?
Probably.
Maybe a little more. I don't know. She's not light though, but ended up just tilting it back like you saw in the time lapse, sliding the table under it, and then he pushed it back while I just kind of lifted and drug it forward until the table started to move. So then had to back the truck up to it, even because our wheel chocks didn't work. But ended up working out. All the measurements seem to align, so glad I took the time to do that. Right now I get to spend the next few nights actually getting this welded to the table, getting it all squared and level. Right now it's just rested on there. I got a ratchet strap holding the front down, so that was an experience, but pretty cool to finally see it up there after all this time. Been a minute since that last clip there, actually like 3 weeks, but that's all right. Still been making some progress on this thing here. Also did a week-long revival and road trip, which you guys will see probably in the next week or two, I would say. So got a pretty cool video coming out about that sometime soon, but I've been making some progress on this thing. I got the car fully mounted to the table now. There's no more ratchet strap holding it down. And then I started to do some other work, but shocker, I couldn't make up my mind on anything. So I would do something and then ended up redoing it because I didn't like it. But now we're basically at square one here, and there's nothing to undo after going this route. So I'll explain that right here. My plan going forward here is to do the rockers and then basically build up from there. So we'll do the rockers, then I'll do the rear door frame piece, the front door frame piece, I'll do the cowl on the top and whatnot. So that's where we're at right here. That's why I got this whole rocker cut out. I got these braces on the side. Everything is double, triple braced up. I mean, I spent probably 3 or 4 nights bracing this and measuring and leveling it out on the table itself. But back to the rockers here. I got these things from AMD right here, and I ended up trimming them, cutting them a little bit because I can't leave anything alone, it seems like. And now I'm making myself my whole new inner rocker pieces here. The reason behind this is I really wanted just like a flat inside piece to then, you know, weld tubes to, or weld outriggers or bracing from the frame rails to. This all kind of started with cutting out the original piece that went here. You can kind of see over there how it's got 2 steps right there, and I made a whole new piece, which you can see down there, which then attached to the floor. Also, as you guys probably see, I cut the floor out AMD. I sincerely apologize. I wish I could make up my mind on something. Pieces of this might be going back in, the whole thing might be going back in, but for right now, to build the rockers, I had to cut it out to get the best product in the end here, because it was going to be pretty much impossible to get a flat piece like that on the inside of the rocker with having the floor still in. Like I was saying though, I tried to make something work with the old rocker, inner rockers, and old, you know, kind of structural points. I just wasn't a fan of it. In the end, I want this car to have no rust whatsoever. So basically here we are back to square one, doing things the right way. It was not an easy decision to cut all of this, but in the end I know I won't regret it, and just looking at this here so far has me pretty excited. So obviously this here is a reproduction AMD outer rocker. I had to trim off all those pieces just from this one rocker here, and that is because from the factory these things have kind of a bowed bottom side to have a curve. Well, I wanted a flat bottom side, one, because I think it looks better, two, it's going to be a lot easier to measure from. So I spent a lot of time getting that kind of bow out of it, trimming and slicing some pieces, welding it back together, getting it perfectly straight now. That is pretty dang good. I think that looks really nice. Put a level on it, measured it, everything is square there. I also got rid of the pinch weld on the bottom, which was a big thing. If you guys have been watching for a while, you probably know how much I have talked about getting rid of the pinch weld on the bottom side of these cars, because I think they look awful. I know it's such a small, stupid little thing, but I'm just not a fan of them, and ultimately that's what's led to this entire process here. After I did all of that to the bottom side of the rocker and the pinch weld, it was time to make the new inner rocker here. So all of this is 1/8 inch or 11 gauge, and that'll be perfect once again, you know, to weld things to. It's structurally sound. This is pretty sturdy right now, even just being tacked together. And I wasn't a big fan of doing this originally, but I ended up going this route, and I think once it's all sanded down and smoothed out and painted, you won't be able to tell, but this is just some angle iron right here. I got it all drilled out and spot welded to the top pinch weld right here, so I can still have weather stripping for the door jamb, go over that. And then I cut out this entire piece here, which matches the bottom shape of the rocker, and I got that tacked on the inside right there. And that is pretty freaking straight all the way across. The goal right now is to cut out another one of these pieces for the other rocker right there. That one looks like it's the driver's side. And then once I get that done, I'll go ahead, once again, drill out all the holes, measure out them for the angle iron here, get that welded to it. I'll show you guys the process of doing that. And then once I'm done and I get to this stage, I'll go ahead and make end caps for this thing, because as you can see, this isn't totally square. This is square right here. Everything's gonna line up with the angle iron. And then once I get end caps tacked together, I'll go through and weld up these things all the way here to make them one solid piece. Got all three pieces for the driver's side rocker made up now. Got all the holes drilled out in the 90 piece here. These are 3 inches across, 1/4 inch down, which will land perfectly on this pinch weld seam right there for the plug welds. I got the inner rocker, if you want to call it that, all cut out. It was a bit tricky, but once I had that one dialed in, to just take the measurements in the template, directly apply to this piece, good to go. One thing I did want to mention though is this is 3 3/4 tall, which obviously goes to the top of this and then the bottom of the rocker right there. The only thing that's not that height is the notch right here, and then kind of that part where it like does a squiggly thing in the back to match up with the moldings on the outer rocker in the back right there. But one thing I did notice that I kind of wish I noticed earlier was that here the driver's side is exactly 76.5 inches long along that pinch weld seam right there. I have not trimmed it at all this way. The only thing I trimmed was, I guess, technically height wise, this side there, which is taking those pinch weld seams off, which you can see on the ground over there. And then this outer rocker here, the passenger side, is exactly 77 inches long right on the end of the pinch weld seam right there. Again, I have not modified this one at all this way, only height wise by taking that pinch weld seam off. So I'm not sure exactly why it's like that. I highly doubt it's an AMD thing at all, because all their stuff thus far has fit up pretty dang good. So if anyone has done rockers on these cars before or has noticed that, I'm curious if that's a common thing or if that's how these all are. I genuinely have no clue what's going on there. So maybe I'll do some research to see if I can figure it out, but it's more than likely a Mopar thing from back in the day, because let's be honest, these cars were not square whatsoever from the factory. But it does leave me with a bit of a predicament here. I got to take a 1/2 inch out of that one someplace. I'm not totally sure where. I'm thinking it'll be in the front right here. That would be the easiest spot. I can't do it in the back because of that like bump right there. I don't want to trim into that. So I'll have to go through, measure out, see what'll work. I don't want to take away this gap because this is where the fender goes over. And then I'm gonna have to see where the door jamb panel, as you can see, this seam will line up. So I don't know, do some measuring, figure that out. What I really don't want to have to do is have to take like a section out of right there and then shorten the rocker overall that way, which I shouldn't have to because the doors have to line up as well. So I honestly don't know what to do. Once I figure it out, I'll let you guys know though. Right now, I'm gonna go ahead, weld all these 3 pieces together and make them become one rocker there. Everything is tacked together there. We have 2 complete rockers now. These things turned out pretty sweet. Got those end caps made and all tacked on. Now I got to go through and weld everything up, and once these are fully welded and on the car, I mean, it's probably down the line at some point, but I just want to say this before. I know a bunch of people probably flooded the comments to say this. I'm going to be painting the inside of these as well as the inside of the frame rails when I get to that point. Eastwood makes this product that you can like stick a hose in there basically, like a tube, and then you kind of just sprays everything. So I didn't want to paint the inside of this because I knew I was going to weld everything up and just going to burn the paint right off. So that's my plan when the time comes. I still might be welding some of these up and drilling different drain or air holes. I haven't decided what I want to do yet, but down here you can see I cut that 1/2 inch off the rocker. I can't remember which side it was, but I ended up cutting it off this front section as well because I had to trim the longer side down maybe 1/4 inch to make this end perfectly square right there, because this rocker wasn't totally square with what I had on there. So both square now. All those pieces I had to cut off, all that I had to cut off with the rockers, but that was the hard part. Now that all that is done, I can go through, get these things fully welded up and make them look like all one piece there. Both rockers here are finished up. I'm pretty happy with the way that they turned out. Just took a lot of time, so I'm more or less excited that I'm done with them. Between metal finishing them, making sure they're both identical, making sure they're perfect, as good as I can. So take time to do it right here. You can see I got that end cap all finished up. The whole bottom is smoothed out as well. Got everything ground down and metal finished. So this back section here was a little bit tricky with kind of all these different body lines, but I'm very happy with the way that that turned out. You can see this inside piece here. That's as straight as she can be. So happy with that. Got this 90 channel all wrapped up too. This could use a little more work, but I'll wait till that's stationary and solid mounted on the car. It'll be easier to do it there. And as you guys can tell, I only have one right here, and that is because number 2 is already on the car. This was not an easy or quick process to get this on here, and in all honesty, it wasn't the most exciting because it's just measurement after measurement, and then try some things. If it doesn't work, try something else. So now that I got it down, I'll film doing this side here to show you guys exactly what I did, but I just want to be able to focus on getting that dialed in. And by far the trickiest thing is trying to get this, set up and aligned properly while none of these stock panels are square or straight from the factory. I mean, I could prove that right here. If you see this gap all the way along the bottom, that is perfect. Same all the way along the bottom until you come right to the end here. And even from a glance, like back here, you can tell this door dips down right at that front point. And that was driving me insane. I don't know why the door is like that. I don't know if someone did body work to this at some point. I mean, it's all metal, so I'm assuming that's how it was from the factory. Kept throwing me off though, because I had 1/8 inch difference up front, and I'm like, why is it like that? And turns out the door just kind of curls down. I don't understand. But when I move on to the doors eventually, I'll have to keep that in mind to make that straight, match the rest of the gap here. But this looks good with this line right there. So very happy with that. See what it looks like on the inside here. And now that this one is done, it is time to mount the door on the driver's side over there. Brace up everything on the inside and then start cutting that rocker out. I got the rest of the driver's side rocker all cut off there. Don't mind the surface rust on the table here. It's starting to get really humid out, so I gotta figure out a way to put some coating on that or something. I know there's something out there that I can do that's like not WD-40 because I don't like how slimy that is, so I'll figure something out, but that's driving me insane. Anyway, back to the important stuff here. This just takes time. There's no way around it. I wanted to leave as much of the metal that's not the rocker there as I could. That way it's easier to, you know, get the new one situated, set in place, know where it's going to go, although this is going to all end up getting replaced either way. So now that that is cut out, I need to go through and make some blocks that are these measurements that I made on this side here, get those mounted to the table, and then I can start tossing that rocker on there and spend a few hours probably getting that all situated. Mounting the rocker on this side was a lot easier and quicker than that side, now that I kind of knew what I was doing, but getting this door aligned for some reason was a lot more challenging. I'm not so sure why. I think this one is twisted in some way. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. So I got it aligned pretty good for right now. It's not perfect though. It'll need a little bit more of getting dialed in once the time comes, but that doesn't matter because the rockers are both in the same location, side to side. They're square, side to side and front to back here, so very happy with that. This line here is parallel. Is that parallel or perpendicular? I can't think. I'm very tired right now. It's on a perfect right angle from here to here. So is that one there. So stoked on that. Made these little brace things for all four corners that are in the same places. Not that it matters, but it keeps my OCD happy. So those look pretty good after a stupid amount of work that was slightly unnecessary. And then I think a lot of people won't notice, but I'll notice, and anyone that sees this car in the future that is watching this video will notice. So I think that'll be a cool part about it once it's all said and done. But definitely a lot better than these things here. I mean, these were trash. There was no way of saving anything about this. And I think that the new inner rockers I made there look a lot better than this like double step overlayered piece. So just stuff that always drove me insane. I should have done this to begin with. I don't know why I didn't. Was not an easy decision, like I stated kind of midway through this video, because I feel bad I had to cut out that floor, but just I don't know, I think this was the right way to go about it. And looking at it now, I can stand here and say I'm pretty happy with the result after all the work that I put. To be able to stand here and just see the idea I had a couple weeks ago actually exists now, so that's exciting. I can't wait to start getting more frame rail and chassis pieces in here and start getting tubes laid out and everything. But that's the starting point for it all. That's the structure point. That's what I can base all my measurements off of now. So I don't know, I'm debating right now in my head if I want that piece on the bottom of the rocker to be the lowest point of the car. I want it to be, but practicality, I don't know if that's the right term. I don't know how that's going to work out. So we'll see. I really want that to be the lowest point of the car because I think that would be cool if it just looks like it kind of like flows under and you can't really see anything underneath the car. Like one of those like infinity pools where it rolls over, because this has got such like a slight curve. If that just rolls to the bottom, you can't see anything under it from like kind of standing level there. I don't know, stupid things I think about that make me spend so much time on this, but yeah, well worth it, I would say. So on to the next thing, because there is a lot left to do here, but that is step one, and I'm just gonna stop talking now.